Right, good evening and welcome to the Saturday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. I hope everybody is safe and well. There is certainly plenty of weather to speak about the here and now, but also as we move into next week as well. So, without further ado, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It would be greatly appreciated. Live stream 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. We're looking at the events of tonight and through the first half of tomorrow in the live stream. Be curious to know what your weather report is from your particular location. But this was the scene of a frosty and a little light snow cover as well here from Marfogan Weather HQ, looking out the back garden and towards the park. This is looking due west at around about 9:30 this morning, and temperatures dipped. I'll get there. Dipped to around -5 this morning, so it was the coldest of meteorological winter anyway here at the house, and I fully suspect that we could see temperatures surpass those levels in the coming nights to come. Temperatures at the moment hovering around the freezing mark in quite a lot of places. We've got temperatures already officially down into the -5, -6 range in eastern Grampian, for example. A little bit less cold in the west coast of Scotland at day 5 at Old Bay, as can be seen here. And then as we progress through the rest of the UK, we're generally hovering a degree or two above or below the freezing mark. We're starting to see slightly milder air moving into far southern Ireland as well as southwestern England, 4s and 5s here. Looking at the latest radar imagery here, this is how things are looking. So we do have a messy picture out there. We are increasing the wind, 40-50 mile per hour winds expected out over open water. Thankfully, they won't be quite as strong, I don't think, over the over mainland areas of either Ireland or UK. But we can see already, if we zoom in, we've had that band of rain, sleet, and snow moving through the far south of Ireland. Now it's moving into the Midland region here towards Dublin. And then as we look over to the mainland UK, we're seeing some snow breaking out over higher parts of the southwest. Exmoor, Dartmoor, Bodmin for example, possibly seeing initial snow as the moisture bumps into the cold air mass, but then as we start to see the warmer air mixing in, we are going to see the precipitation changing over to liquid. The problem is obviously with the cold air, especially in the low levels of the atmosphere and at the surface, we are going to see freezing rain. That has become a bit of a concern, from the Met Office and also the BBC as this moisture continues to drift northwards, and we see the warmer air generally about maybe say a couple of 100 meters above the surface. As that milder air moves in, we're going to see precipitation changing over to liquid, and then it's simply those raindrops do not have enough time to refreeze back into snow before hitting the ground. So as it descends through the atmosphere, moving from cold to warm back to cold once again, it super cools the water droplets, and then we see the moisture freezing instantly on impact with any surface, whether it be the ground or objects such as poles or cars or whatever. We will see that issue taking place. We may see some transient snow into the greater London area through this evening before it changes back over to rain. As we continue to look north, it is largely high and dry, but we are starting to see some winteriness moving into North Wales, parts of West Midlands as well. Rain at the moment across more eastern areas of southern England, as can be seen here. But it's as this moisture continues to drift northwards as we progress through the overnight tonight into the first half of tomorrow. I must apologise, by the way. I did mention in yesterday's video, I think, everything a little bit too quickly moving through. I actually thought that the milder air, perhaps I maybe just need to pay a little bit more attention to the speed of this system. But certainly over the last couple of days, I think I've rushed everything just a little bit too quickly. So we stay reasonably chilly through the overnight tonight, or the early portions of the overnight, and then we're starting to see the milder air, double digits above freezing, moving in as we progress into the first half of tomorrow. We could see a very sharp temperature gradient between 0 or a couple of degrees above freezing versus 10, 11, 12 Celsius in the more southern areas. Perhaps only a 50, 60 mile difference could see a very significant change in terms of the temperature. We are seeing some showers here, slightly less colder, moving into parts of Lewis and Harris, for example, the far north mainland. And like I say, the core of the cold is actually centered tonight at the time of recording, which is just before 5:30 p.m. in eastern Grampian. We also have a -4 or -3.6 to be exact at the Loch Lisgarnock in Ross-shire. We're sitting at around 0.6 at 10 and also 1 Celsius in Inverness Dalcross. A couple of spots that are a little bit cooler down towards Thomastown and southwestern Northern Ireland, seeing a -1. We've got a couple of spots just south of the border into the Republic of Ireland. It's also seeing temperatures around about the -1 Celsius range. Looking at the Highland Weather Network, we do have some unofficial temperatures down to double digits below freezing as of this evening 5:30. So if we quickly refresh this chart here, you can see the contrast in temperature. We've got quite a lot of variability actually in terms of the temperatures this evening here. We're obviously still early on in the night. We will see temperatures continuing to drop off, especially if the winds remain reasonably light and with skies. I promise I've not had anything to drink. But you can see here a couple of spots sitting at around the -10 Celsius range. But then if you move further north along the Murray Coast, for example, we're at +2 and 3 Celsius. Further westwards here, you can see the variability here, -2s around the Ardross or just east of Ardross, while we've got 1 Celsius at Allness. And then we're kind of in and around the freezing mark here at Marthagan Weather HQ. I live in the Evanton village, which is just about 15 miles north of Inverness. So you can see here the variability in terms of the temperatures. But then as you move towards the west coast, we're seeing temperatures of +3 to +6 Celsius, moving up towards the Stornoway area. And you can see here that we've got the 4, 5s, and 6s. But factor in any breeze, it is feeling fairly chilly out there, to be honest with you. Looking at the minimum temperatures, and this was as of this morning, and you can see here again that we do have the core of coldest conditions over eastern portions of the Cairngorms and Grampian here. So it looks as if we've had a few spots down around the -12 Celsius range. I can't see anything much colder than that, I don't think. So yeah, it was certainly a chilly old morning out there, especially with the help of snow-covered ground. It looks as if we've got a -13 Celsius here at Rough Park. So yeah, minimum temperature -12.6 Celsius. So that's obviously rounded up. Looking onwards, and there is some interesting things going on with regards to the MJO and the Stratosphere, but we'll look at that in just a second. This is the latest information of the Met Office. So we've got this amber warning in effect as of 6 p.m. So we're approaching the time that amber warning is in effect, covering most of inland Wales through the Midlands and further north up into the north of England as well, especially away from coastal areas where we may see more in the way of rain. The problem is we are seeing some transient nature to this precipitation. Rain changing to snow, then perhaps changing back over to rain as we progress through the next 24 hours or so. So there is going to be variability, especially over high ground and even along coastal areas where temperatures are somewhat a little bit more marginal, shall we say, with regards to wintry precipitation. But this is off the Weather Online site. You can see here the showers across the far north, mainly falling as rain, and then we've got the bulk of the moisture associated with that system moving across southern into central portions of the Republic of Ireland, covering southwestern England, South Wales now starting to see the heavy precipitation, and that is coming down pretty darn hard as well. Remember, dynamic cooling has to get factored in as well, where we see the air mass cool with that heavier precipitation falling. Looking in terms of the pressure chart here, this is how things are looking, and you can see that system now on the southwestern flank here, just to the southwest of both Ireland and the British Isles here. A little bit of a tightening of the isobars indicates that we are picking up a stronger southeasterly wind as the centre of the low moves a little bit closer to the south of Ireland and southwest of England. got relatively breezy conditions, some lighter winds, but generally we've got a little bit of a light breeze blowing across the bulk of UK and Ireland here, but closer to the centre of the low, as the isobars squeeze together, we're seeing wind gusts in excess of 60 kilometres per hour. Far southern Ireland at Sherkin Island, we've got 65 in the Scilly Isles, and then we've got an 80 kilometre per hour gust now starting to show up at Camborne in I was going to say Cumbria, but Cornwall. I'll get there. Looking at the models here as we progress through the course of this evening here, just bear with a second so that I can find the appropriate chart. It looks as if I've actually moved away from the appropriate chart, so just bear with me a second here and we'll show you exactly what's expected from the models here as we progress through the next 24 hours or so here. So let's look at the UK specifically. This is off the GFS model initially. You can see here as we play through the course of this evening, rain, changing the snow, then back over the rain once again as we see the milder air starting to mix in. There's the centre of the low at 983 millibars, where I've got windy conditions, 20, 30, 40 mile per hour winds. Factor in the heavy snowfall that is going to provide the blowing, drifting, and low visibility as that rain and snow starts to spread its way further and further north. So obviously the bulk of the snow and rain and the mix moves through Wales and the bulk of southern and central England as we move towards the middle portions of tomorrow, and then it really sets up across parts of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the far north of England, but also extending into southern Scotland as well. The southern uplands may see as much as say 15-20 centimeters, especially in exposed areas. Factor in a strong easterly wind. We've got some treacherous driving conditions in some of those borders regions, say South Lanarkshire, Dumfries and Galloway, and then moving up towards the central belt here. I think the majority of the snow will actually be to the east of the Greater Glasgow area, around the Shotts area, and eastwards towards Edinburgh. We could see some snow through the latter half of the overnight, but particularly so during the first half of Sunday. High and dry, clear skies, cold across northern portions of Scotland, especially north of the central belt. But we are going to start to see, as that low then starts to spread its way eastwards, the centre of the low moves into the North Sea. And what's going to happen is we're going to start to pick up a more pronounced east or northeasterly airflow. That means that we're going to start to pick up moisture off the North Sea. The precipitation type changes and the dynamics change. Rather than being moisture associated with the low itself, it actually becomes more convective, and the cold air that drives over the North Sea falling as rain along the immediate coast, but then once you get inland with the cold air in place, that will fall readily to sleet and snow, and we could see some significant amounts of snow in eastern areas of Scotland, into the Murray Firth area, through the Cromarty and Dornoch Firths as well, where the wind blows into these gaps within the land. We could see some decent amounts of snow showers blowing in during the latter half of tomorrow, so Sunday evening and into the first half of Monday. You notice here that we've got a pinch in the isobars indicating that we have got gusty winds blowing in from an east or northeasterly direction. Then things get more interesting once again as we see the rise in temperature. We start to see the fall once again as the area of low pressure eventually starts to move eastwards, opening the door to the Arctic air back into the UK and Ireland once again. Let's have a quick look at the 850s and see the rise and fall of the temperatures here at the 5,000 foot level over the next 24 hours or so. So back to the here now, we can see the milder air lifting northwards here all the way up towards the Manchester area, where we could see some decent amounts of snow. Even Liverpool may see some snow, but Manchester, Leeds, Bradford, Wakefield, you're going to be right on that boundary between milder to the south and the colder lingering on to the north. But as we play through the loop here, you can see that that cold air kind of starts to dig its way south as the centre of the low moves to the east. So we'll reinforce that Arctic air down over the UK and Ireland as we progress through the course of Monday. So we will see this temporary recovery in temperature across southern UK, a short-lived one because the cold comes back in gangbusters as we move towards the early portions of next week. then as we play through this loop of the GFS model, the cold air remains anchored over the UK and Ireland, relatively unharmed all the way through towards the next weekend. And then you notice that we start to see milder conditions seen by the GFS model by the time we reach Monday, 13th of January. This is a long way out, however. And what's quite interesting about this is the fact that we have got a few interesting things going on with regards to the possibility of a Scandinavian high starting to develop, and with things happening within the stratosphere and also the Magellan oscillation becoming more amplified in phases 8 and the 1, there is some reason to believe that this possible blip within this cold spell may be relatively short lived as well. And we could see this cold spell continuing to kind of linger on through the second half of January here. But there is a very significant amount of uncertainty as we move towards the middle portions of this month with regard to the behavior of what's going on within the polar vortex, both in the stratosphere as well as the troposphere, the MJO movement, the amplitude of that MJO as well, because the greater the amplitude in those cold phases, the greater the influence on the upper air pattern throughout the northern hemisphere. So there are so many things happening at the moment here. So please, if you love this kind of stuff, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It is absolutely free content here, 7 days a week on the channel. It is hard to beat the content that you're receiving here on the channel. I take quite a bit of pride because it is largely unbiased, unhyped weather content here that perhaps you're not getting in other places, because a lot of channels now try to hype things up, whether it be whatever, basically. So this is the GFS forecast in terms of the snowfall. You can see here that the initial accumulations then get retreated to the north as that milder air moves in, and then it kind of comes back in once again because we've got a little bit of a return flow, west southwesterly flow, even southeasterly flow, dragging in that warmer air from the south. But then as that low centers further east, you're actually pulling the moisture, or pulling the colder air back south once again. That moisture actually may return to a snowy setup. So rain, snow, rain, back to snow is another factor that we need to take into consideration as well. But this is the GFS model interpretation of snow depth as of 18 UTC on Monday coming up. So a decent amount of snow inland areas of central and southern Ireland, central and North Wales, and the highest parts in particular of the North Midlands extending into northern England. And you can quite clearly see the high ground element of this as well. So parts of the Peak District just to the east of the Manchester area, up the spine of the Pennines, Cumbria, for example, southern uplands, especially over towards the Lothian region, and then over the central Cairngorm region as well. We could see some significant amounts of snow, but then also further north, as that the flow comes in off the North Sea, we've got that convective snow band situation developing as well. We may even see some thunder snow associated with that as well. So I would suspect up the eastern side of Scotland, anywhere from the borders right the way up to Caithness and Sutherland, where you're exposed to that east northeasterly flow, you're going to see some snow even down to sea level, for example, and those snow amounts could mount up quite substantially as we progress out of the weekend and into the early portions of next week. So that's the GFS. Let's have a quick look at this another model here to see what they are showing here. So this is off the arpege model. Go back to the here now, play through the loop. You can see here there's the snow building across a good part of Wales and higher parts, generally to the north of southern England. Here we see that initial snow, then it changes back to rain, and with 10 to 11 Celsius air temperatures, we are going to see the snow melting quite quickly. You can see significant amounts of snow over southern Ireland as well. Then as we continue to play through the course of Sunday, you see the snow initially over the eastern side of Scotland, but building quite substantially across parts of interior southern Ireland, North Wales, northern England, especially over the Pennines, for example, and then the higher parts of eastern borders extending into the Edinburgh area, and then up the eastern side of Scotland, and even around the Moray coast area, we could see some significant snow even in the Inverness area, it would not surprise me in the slightest. In terms of the temperatures, this is an interesting one here of the model, indicating that we have got a very significant gradient in terms of the temperatures. And if I can get to the right chart, I'll show you this because it's quite fascinating to see. I'm probably not going to find it. Here we go. This is exactly what I wanted to show you. This is off the R-Page model, so Medio France, their model, indicating that we've got -4 at Loch Liscarnock. This is the 12 GMT tomorrow afternoon. So midday tomorrow, we've got a -4 Celsius. This is the raw model data, so you can't take this quite literally, but it would not surprise me in the slightest. While we've got a 13 Celsius on the north shore of Cornwall at the same time. So we've got a 13 on the north coast of Cornwall. We've got a -4 at Loch Liscarnock, and we've also got quite a gradient here between 1 Celsius around the Birmingham area to around 9-10 Celsius down towards the Severn, where the Severn essentially is. So southwest Wales, we've got 10-11 Celsius, and down towards the Bristol area, we've got 10-11 Celsius. Also, even London is seeing 11 Celsius at that same time as well. So we've got quite the gradient here: 10, 12, 13 Celsius in southern England. We've got the -1 or 2 over northern England, even encountering the North Midlands as well. So pretty impressive stuff. Now, as we continue to play through this R-Page model, you can see that the temperatures drop off pretty quickly, even across more southern areas. We're back into the cold air as we move into Monday, Tuesday of next week, and we could see some particularly cold nights. Wouldn't be surprised if we see -teens next week across parts of the UK as we see the conditions becoming more favourable for particularly cold nights with maximum radiational cooling. Snow-covered ground, clear skies, light winds. We are likely to see double digits below freezing, even parts of England and Wales as we progress through the course of next week. I want to show you this here. So this is off the GFS, indicating that we have got some very strong warming taking place across the 10 millibar level within the Arctic. So you notice here, this is as we progress through the next couple of days. We've got very cold conditions within the polar vortex, while we've got strong warming on the outer edge, crossing over Europe and Asia towards the pole. We're actually seeing the core temperature within the PV drop to -100 Celsius by the time we reach next week here. So as we continue to play through, you can see this very significant warming taking place over the Eurasia side of the pole. That's forcing the core of the PV to then drop into the North Atlantic towards the UK and Ireland. And then as we continue to play through this loop, you can see here very strong warming showing up right the way across the pole from Asia across to North America and Greenland here. The core, the body of the polar vortex then gets swept into Europe here. But if we look at the actual temperature and heights here, if we go back through the loop, you can see that the core of the polar vortex really does become even colder, and we could see some nacreous clouds or polar stratospheric clouds. High alert for this, by the way, over the next couple of weeks. But watch this here. You see the minimum temperature here at the very bottom left-hand corner of the graphic. Watch as I play through this loop how the temperature continues to fall away, and by the time we reach, what would this be, towards the next weekend and early the following week, the core temperature is expected to drop in and around -100. So Tuesday, the 14th of January, obviously a long way out, but the core of the PV centre just to the north of the UK and Ireland, seen by the GFS model, is at an astonishing -100C. So this is quite interesting. But as we continue to play through this, you notice that we've got this strong warming then starting across the top of the pole into North America. The core of the PV then gets shifted into Europe here. And if we look at the 50 millibar level here real quick, this is a way out to the middle portions of the month, but it's indicating that we've got some very strong warming down in the lower portions of the stratosphere. So it's all very well talking about the 10 millibar level, but when you progress down into the lower strat, as I've said many times previous, that quite often the profile within the 50 millibar level within the lower stratosphere can reflect what's going on underneath within the troposphere. And we've got this very strong warming showing up between East Asia across into North America, with the core of the polar vortex centered towards the UK and Ireland here. So there is things going on at the moment that we need to pay close attention to. In terms of the Mann-Julian oscillation, this is the latest off the GFS ensemble, indicating that we're in the null phase at the moment, so a rather inactive phase, but we were in phase 7, which is promoting cold weather. High latitude blocking, negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation. That is what we have at the moment. But this is interesting. The modelling is indicating that it becomes quite amplified phase 8 and into 1, right on the border between those two phases. That would promote stronger blocking in the longer term. And when you coincide with what's going on within the polar vortex, very fascinating stuff to look at. And then, real quick, I want to just show you here one other aspect. This is off the ECMWF weeklies. This is the 7-day increments. So we've got this deep trough over the eastern side of North America, snowstorms, bitterly cold conditions residing from the Midwest to the East Coast. We've got the strong block over Greenland at the moment here, and we've got the trough over most of Europe at the moment. Now, as we play through this sequence, you see how we start to see the higher pressure building slightly to the north of the UK and Ireland at the moment. That indicates that as we move towards the 11 to 18 day, Tuesday the 14th through the Tuesday the 21st of January, with high pressure just to the north of the UK over Scandinavia, with colder in place, we could start to see easterly flow starting to develop towards the UK and Ireland here. So this is all worth paying close attention to as we go through the next few weeks here. Looking at the Europe view specifically, for the same time frame, you've got that high slightly to the north of UK and Ireland here. So back to the current situation, we've got the deep trough over the majority of Europe at the moment here, centered over southern Scandinavia. So this is the next 7-day period. Looking at the surface temperatures for the same period, and we've got firmly colder than average across the UK and Ireland. So this takes us out to Friday, the 10th of January. Continue to play through this loop. Now, remember, I've showed you the CFSV2 and the GFS ensemble, but even the ECM extended is indicating day 5 through 12, Wednesday 8th through Wednesday the 15th. We've still got colder than average conditions across the majority of the UK and Ireland. Continue to play through. Notice here that we start to see a moderation to the cold, which is quite interesting here, but then it tries to see something a little bit cooler taking place as we move towards the end of the month here. So as I've already said, mild December, colder at least first half of January, possibly a retreat during the second half of January, and overall average to slightly above below average temperatures for the UK and Ireland for the month of January here. So things are playing out reasonably well at the moment here. Feeling quite good about it, but we'll wait and see what happens as we go through the next couple of weeks. Finally, let's have a very quick look and see what the model is indicating. We'll look at the ECMWF 850 temperatures for the rest of the upcoming week here. So back to the bigger picture, looking at the 850 anomalies. In fact, we'll look at, no, let's look at the 850s first of all, the actual temperatures expected. So we are obviously flirting with the milder conditions here as that area of low pressure moves from west to east. Cold air over central and northern UK, as can be seen here. The majority of Ireland in the colder air. That system then pulls into the near continent Denmark, northern portions of Denmark and Norway, even into Sweden. We've got milder conditions moving in here. There's the colder air coming down on the back side of that low, continuing to play through. Now remember, we're moving into the middle portions of next week. Very cold air in place, and with higher pressure potentially developing, we could see some very cold days and nights to come next week. And then it looks as if we're flirting with something milder as we move towards next weekend and beyond. So yeah, interesting things going on. And look at this here at the very end of the loop, we've got another shot of bitterly cold air coming in. So remember what's going on: polar vortex, MJO, etc., etc. keep it right here in the channel. I know there's been a lot to take in, and I do apologize for the length of the video this evening, but I'm trying to cover everything at the moment here. So drop a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll see you hopefully at 4 p.m. tomorrow for the live stream. Have a great rest of your Saturday evening, folks. Bye bye.